My mother abandoned me as a baby and went to prison for not paying child support. But when my dad died, her husband tried to replace him. So at a family party, I exposed them both, and they'll never forget what I said. I'm 27 years old. I work in graphic design, and I'm engaged to the love of my life, Austin. But what happened a few weeks ago at my cousin's birthday party basically exploded all the shit I've been holding in since I can remember. I guess I should start at the beginning. Though the truth is, I don't remember much of the beginning because I was literally a baby when Catherine, my biological mother, decided that being a mom wasn't her thing and just left. I was like 6 months old, I think. Maybe less. I'm not sure of the exact details because my dad, Matthew, never wanted to talk much about it. But what I do know is that she got up one day and said she couldn't do it anymore, and that was it. She left me with my dad and disappeared from our lives like it was nothing. My dad was amazing, and I don't just say that because he was my dad, but because he literally did the work of two people throughout my entire childhood. He worked in construction, did extra shifts when he could, and still was always there to take me to school, help me with homework, make breakfast, everything. I remember when I was little, like 5 or 6 years old, he would braid my hair for school, and they always came out kind of crooked because he had no idea how to do them right. But he tried so hard that I never said anything to him. The other kids sometimes made fun of me because my braids looked like they were done by a tornado, but I didn't care because I knew my dad had made them with all the love in the world, you know? He never complained, never made me feel like I was a burden or like the situation was hard for him. He just loved me, and that was it. Catherine, on the other hand, was a complete disaster. The court had ordered her to pay child support and have regular visits, but she basically ignored all of that, like court orders were optional suggestions. She would go months without showing up, and when she did, it was because my dad practically dragged her through his lawyer. She went to jail twice for not paying child support. Can you believe it? Twice. And still she kept acting like she was the victim in this whole situation, like the world was unfair to her for demanding she take care of the daughter she brought into the world. The visits that were supposed to be every other weekend became once every 3 months, if I was lucky. And when she finally showed up, she'd be on her phone or talking to whoever she was dating at the time, basically ignoring me, while I tried to get her attention like some desperate idiot, craving a bit of maternal affection. When I was 6, Catherine met Nathan. They got married super fast, and suddenly she started having kids with him, one after another, until she had 3. And that's when things got even weirder because suddenly she could be a mother. She could change diapers and go to school plays and do all the things she never did for me, but only for those kids, not for me. I was still like this uncomfortable reminder of her, past that she preferred to ignore. And Nathan, well, Nathan was a whole other issue. He tried to be nice at first, I guess, but there was something about the way he approached me that always made me uncomfortable, like he thought he could just replace my dad if he tried hard enough. The first big incident with Nathan was when I was 10 years old. My school organized a Father's Day event, one of those things where dads come and do activities with their kids, and my dad was super excited to go. He had asked for the day off work and everything. But it turns out Catherine told Nathan about the event without asking me or telling me anything, and Nathan showed up at school that day thinking he was going to participate with me. My dad was already there, obviously, because he never missed anything that had to do with me. And suddenly, Nathan shows up with this giant smile saying, "Hi, Skylar. I came for Father's Day." I froze. Honestly, because I didn't know what to do, and my dad immediately got tense. Nathan tried to act like it was totally normal for him to be there, like he had any right to be at that event. And I finally told him, "My dad is already here. I don't need you." It sounded harsher than I meant it to, I think, but I was angry. This guy who barely knew me was trying to butt into one of the few special moments I had with my dad, and I wasn't going to allow it. Nathan left after that. But I remember my dad hugged me extra tight that day and told me I could always say what I felt, that it was okay to set boundaries. Everything changed when I was 14. My dad was like 42, I think. Still young, really. Super healthy according to everyone. And one day he just collapsed at work. Massive heart attack. They told me later. There were no warnings, no signs. He was just alive in the morning, making breakfast and joking about something stupid. And by the afternoon, he was dead. Dead. I didn't even get to say goodbye. I didn't even get to tell him how much I loved him one last time. The funeral was a horrible blur. I remember sitting there staring at the coffin and thinking that none of this could be real. That my dad couldn't be in there. That any moment I was going to wake up from this nightmare and he was going to be in the kitchen making coffee, like always, and that's when Nathan decided to make his big move. At the funeral, literally at my father's funeral, Nathan came up to me with this expression that I guess was supposed to be compassionate but just seemed condescending to me, and told me that Catherine and he had talked and that I could go live with them, that they wanted to give me a home and a family. I felt like I'd been slapped. This guy who had barely been present in my life, who had only tried to approach me a couple times and had always been rejected. I thought that now that my dad was dead, he could just pick me up like I was some abandoned package on the street. And Catherine was standing there behind him, nodding like this was the most logical thing in the world, like she hadn't spent the last 14 years basically ignoring my existence. I said no immediately. Like I didn't even think about it. I just said no thank you and walked away. My uncles, Drew and Seth, my dad's brothers, had already talked to me before the funeral and offered for me to stay with them, and I accepted without hesitation because they had been present in my life. They had cared about me when my dad was alive, and they still cared now that he wasn't. Nathan tried to insist. He followed me and started saying things like, "But we're your family. Your mother loves you. You should be with us." And I finally exploded and yelled at him that Catherine had never been my mother in any real sense of the word, that he was nothing to me, and that my family was my uncle's. Period. Drew had to get Nathan out of the place because he kept trying to talk to me even after I made it clear I wanted nothing to do with him or Catherine. I lived with Drew and Seth from 14 to 18, and they were amazing. They gave me space to process the grief, took me to therapy, made sure I finished high school, everything a parent would do for their child. Nathan tried to contact me a couple times during those years, sent text messages asking how I was, if I needed anything, if I wanted to meet with him and Catherine to talk, and I just blocked him over and over. Catherine called once. I think it was like a year after the funeral, and started crying on the phone saying she was so sorry, that she wanted to be part of my life, that she had made mistakes but now she was different. I hung up on her without saying anything because frankly I had nothing to say to her. Her apologies were like 10 years too late and meant nothing to me at that point. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. I'm 27 now. I live in my own apartment. I have a job I like. I'm engaged to Austin, who is literally the most wonderful human being on the planet, and things are going well, you know? I've done therapy. I've processed most of the trauma from my childhood. And honestly, I don't think much about Catherine or Nathan because they're just not part of my life, and I don't want them to be. But my cousin was having a birthday and throwing a big party with all the extended family, and I decided to go because I love my cousin, and because I thought Catherine and Nathan probably weren't going to be there, because they don't usually go to these family reunions on my dad's side. I was wrong. I arrived at the party with Austin. Everything was fine. I was talking with my cousins and my uncles, eating cake, the usual. And suddenly I see Catherine and Nathan walking through the door. Apparently my cousin had invited Catherine because technically she's family, even if she's the black sheep nobody really wants to see. And Catherine brought Nathan because obviously she can't go anywhere without him. I tried to ignore them. Honestly, I just wanted to enjoy the party and then leave, but Nathan had other plans. He approached me while I was at the drinks table, with that big fake smile he always uses, and said, "Hi, Skylar. Long time no see. You look really good." I gave him a short answer, like thanks, and started to walk away, but he kept talking, asking me about my life, my work, if I still lived with my uncles. No, I haven't lived with them for like 9 years. Nathan. And then he saw the engagement ring on my finger and his face lit up like he'd won the lottery. "Oh, you're engaged? That's wonderful, Skylar. Congratulations. When's the wedding?" I told him we hadn't set a date yet, hoping that would be the end of the conversation. But then he said something that made me feel like someone had thrown ice water on me. He said, "Well, when you have the definite date, I would love to walk you down the aisle. It would be an honor for me to be able to walk with you on your special day and give you away to your future husband." He said this with total seriousness, like it was the most natural thing in the world, like he had any right or reason to be at my wedding, much less walk me down the aisle, a role that's traditionally for the bride's father, and he definitely wasn't my father in any sense of the word. I stood there, staring at him, unable to believe what I'd just heard, and he kept talking like my silence was consideration instead of absolute shock. He started saying things like, "I know things have been difficult between us, but I'm your stepfather. I've been married to your mother for over 20 years, and I think it would be appropriate for me to have a role in your wedding, especially since your biological father is no longer here. The mention of my dad was what finally made me explode. I told him, in the coldest voice I could, that my father was dead and that no one, absolutely no one, was going to replace him at my wedding or in any other aspect of my life. I told him he wasn't my stepfather, that a stepfather implies some kind of parental relationship that never existed between us, and that the fact that he was married to Catherine didn't give him any rights over me or my life. The party had gotten kind of quiet at this point because my voice had gone up without me realizing it, and people were staring, but honestly, I didn't care anymore. I told him that he had tried to force his way into my life since I was 10 years old, that I had consistently rejected him over and over, and that if after 17 years he still didn't understand the message, then maybe he needed me to say it more clearly. I didn't want him in my life, I didn't need him in my life, and I definitely didn't want him at my wedding. Nathan went pale and started stammering, something about just wanting to be a family. And Catherine, who had been watching from across the room, came running over asking what was happening. And that's when all the rage I'd been holding in for years finally came out. I told Catherine that she had no right to act like a concerned mother now, that she had given up that right when she left me as a baby, that she had spent my entire childhood choosing not to be present, not to pay child support, not to comply with court-ordered visits, and that now that I was an adult and didn't need anything from her, she suddenly wanted to play happy family. I reminded her, in front of everyone at that party, that she had gone to jail twice for not paying child support, that she had 3 children with Nathan and raised them perfectly fine while I was treated like an afterthought, and that when my dad died she had done nothing, absolutely nothing, to help or support me. I told her that my uncles, Drew and Seth, had been more parents to me than she and Nathan together could have been in 1,000 lifetimes, and that if she thought a couple of tearful phone calls over the years were going to erase 13 years of abandonment and neglect, she was completely delusional. Catherine started crying, obviously, because she always cries when confronted with the consequences of her actions, and Nathan tried to defend her, saying I was being cruel, that she had done the best she could in a difficult situation. I looked at him and asked him what exactly had been difficult about her situation when she decided to just not be a mother, when the option to be present for your daughter was always there and she consistently chose not to take it. I told him I didn't accept his excuses, that I didn't care about his tears or his hurt feelings, and that I wanted both of them to leave me alone once and for all. I took Austin's hand and we left the party, and on the way home, I started shaking because all the adrenaline was leaving my system. Austin was incredible. He let me vent in the car, hugged me when we got to the apartment, and told me he was proud of me for finally saying everything I needed to say. I thought that would be the end. That after that public confrontation, Catherine and Nathan would finally understand the message and leave me alone. I was wrong again. 2 days later, Catherine called me, and I made the mistake of answering because I didn't recognize the number and thought it might be work. She immediately started yelling at me, saying that I had humiliated her in front of the whole family, that I had no right to talk to her like that she was my mother and deserved respect. I told her that respect is earned and that she hadn't done anything in my entire life to earn mine, and before she could keep yelling, I hung up and blocked the number. I thought that would really be the end this time. But like a week ago, Nathan showed up at my apartment unannounced. He rang the doorbell on a Sunday morning, and when I opened the door, there he was, with that determined look on his face that immediately gave me a bad feeling. He started talking fast, like he'd rehearsed a speech, saying that we needed to talk, that I was part of Catherine's family and therefore part, too, of his family, that he just wanted to have a relationship with me, and that he didn't understand why I was so hostile toward him when he had only tried to help all these years. I told him there was nothing to talk about, that I had made it clear to him multiple times that I wanted nothing to do with him or Catherine, and that if he kept harassing me, I was going to have to take legal action. He tried to put his foot in the door, literally, when I tried to close it, saying, "Please, Skylar, just give me 5 minutes. We can work this out." But I'd had enough. I told him to remove his foot or I was going to call the police, and when he finally did, I slammed the door in his face and put on the lock. Austin was there and saw everything, and told me we should consider a restraining order if Nathan kept showing up, but so far he hasn't come back. I blocked both Catherine and Nathan on absolutely everything: phone, social media, email, everything I could think of, and told my uncles and cousins to please not give them information about me if they ask. The wedding is in 6 months, and it's going to be small. Just people we really care about. And obviously neither Catherine nor Nathan are invited. Drew is going to walk me down the aisle, which is perfect, because he and Seth were the ones who really were there when I needed them. Sometimes I feel a little bit of guilt, not for Catherine or Nathan, but for my half-siblings, because they're not to blame for any of this and probably have a completely different version of this whole story. But at the end of the day, I have to protect my own peace of mind and my own happiness, and that means maintaining firm boundaries with people who have only caused me pain. I don't know if I did everything right, if I should have handled things differently, if I was too harsh at the party, but honestly, I don't care that much anymore. I've spent too many years of my life worrying about the feelings of people who never worried about mine. Austin asked me yesterday if I ever thought I could forgive Catherine, and I told him I didn't know, that maybe someday when I'm older and have more perspective, but that for now all I wanted was to move forward with my life without that weight on my shoulders, without having to explain over and over why I don't want a relationship with my biological mother and her husband. My family is Drew and Seth. It's my cousins who were there. It's Austin. And someday it'll be the children we have together if we decide to have them, and that family is more than enough for me.